This webinar is entitled Tips for Promoting Communication in Young Learners. In this webinar, the following information will be reviewed. A brief review of how communication is impacted in individuals diagnosed with autism, types of communication, where to get started depending on where your child is at right now, building motivation and connection, nonverbal communication strategies, verbal communication strategies, expanding that communication, and then some additional tips for promoting communication. For individuals with autism, social communication can be challenging. While individuals with autism have a great deal of variability in individual strengths and challenges, it's important to remember that this may occur differently across different individual skill areas. For example, some individuals may have strengths in their expressive skills, while receptive skills could be more tricky for that individual. Expressive communication refers to communication that is initiated by someone in order to share a request or information to another person. This can be shared via vocal language, gestures, visuals, or sign language. Expressive communication may be impacted in a variety of ways. For example, they may have difficulty communicating their wants and needs verbally or non-verbally. They may have limited vocal language or language that could be difficult for others to understand. You also might see someone with autism using scripted or repetitive phrases. Receptive communication refers to how one receives information from others. Receptive skills may be impacted in a variety of ways also, including the following. It may take someone longer to process information that they're hearing from another. Individuals with autism may have difficulty following directions. You may also see difficulty in understanding how to do tasks that are presented by another. So what happens in this situation? Difficulty in communicating wants and needs can lead your child to demonstrate a variety of challenges. You might see your child shut down and stop trying to communicate with you. Likely you will see frustration increase, which will lead your child to attempt to get their point across in different ways that may be difficult for you to understand or respond to. For example, they might engage in tantrum behavior, aggression, crying, or refusing to cooperate with you. Communication can take many forms. The following are just a few common examples. Your child may point or gesture to items, people, or activities, or shake their head yes or no. They may use words to ask or comment about items, such as seeing a cookie and saying the word cookie. Using full sentences is another way to communicate. So a full sentence could be saying cookie, please, or I want the cookie when they see the cookie. Pointing to or handing you a picture of an item that they want or want to communicate about could be a form of communication, or using sign language. Now let's talk about where it makes sense to start teaching depending on your child's current communication style. So if your child is not indicating what they want with words, signs, or gestures yet, we're going to start with the earliest form of communication, which is gestures. What if your child is non-verbally communicating by taking you to items, pointing, but they're not producing words yet? We may want to help them at this point with communicating using signs or pictures. If your child is using vocal language but not consistently, or maybe they don't ask for things and share information with you, we'll start by teaching them to ask for the things that they want verbally. So building engagement in play and modeling and encouraging commenting and requesting throughout play schemes will be highlighted as well. Even if your child is vocal, make sure to include practice with gestures and other forms of non-vocal communication if they are not demonstrating these skills. Whatever type of communication skill you are teaching, you're going to start with teaching your child to ask for what they love the most and to engage with you during activities they enjoy. We want communication to be enjoyable and rewarding. If your child can advocate for the things that they want when they want them, they'll feel empowered and you'll likely see their frustration decrease. The first step to help your child practice will be setting up situations in which your child is motivated and excited to get the things that they enjoy. It will also be important for you to show them that you are there to help them get the things that they want. Some ways you can do this, some ways to motivate your child to ask for items and activities would be placing some items up high. Preferred items can be placed out of reach, like on a shelf, or perhaps in a container that they have difficulty opening without your help. You can then insert pauses and expectant looks, add that wow factor. We also want to promote communication during play. That's another important area. So some ways we can do that would be building that engagement in play. Ways to build the engagement would be following your child's lead. They'll show you what they enjoy, and we want to stay focused on things that your child finds fun and enjoyable. Narrate their play and add something silly. If your child likes to play with a ball and roll it repetitively, you can narrate by saying, the ball's going down, 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 and oh no, maybe a character comes in and steals the ball. This may engage your child to join you. Imitate your child. If they enjoy spinning a top or playing with a specific toy, maybe get your own toy and sit next to them and play. Also, always include preferred physical play. This is a great way to get your child to engage with you. A couple other tips would be playfully blocking. If your child likes to play repetitively with toys, especially, you might want to blow bubbles over the top of their play or cover the toy with a blanket and play a game of peekaboo. Bring in a preferred character or a theme, such as Pete the Cat or Mario. They could come get stuck in the child's Play-Doh or in the middle of their block tower. We want to model fun actions and activities so the child is motivated to ask you to keep going or to join them. You can insert pauses and excited, expectant looks. For example, blow one bubble and then pause and say, oh, wow, what's going to happen next? Now that your child is interested and engaged, we can start inserting some practice with communication strategies. In this first video, you'll see a mother engaging with her young child and encouraging engagement and communication attempts. Watch for how she uses her facial expressions and build up to encourage motivation and shared interest. You can see that when the mother makes an exaggerated facial expression, she's likely to draw the attention of her young child to her face. We'll next talk about promoting nonverbal communication in your child. When your child indicates that they want something, they'll show you by looking at the item, trying to grab the item, or reaching for it. You can show them how to gesture to the item and then help them practice. You'll do this by first modeling the gesture, i.e. you may point to the item and show them the pointing, and then you can model what you're pointing to by saying cookie. Help them make the gesture. We call this a prompt sometimes, but we want to gently guide their hand to make the gesture we're trying to help them make. So we might help their hand make a point toward the item in the direction that they're looking at, and then help you lead them to that item. We can give them a little bit of the item when they do that prompted response, and then we can let them keep practicing. We could break off a small piece of cookie and then continue to help by prompting them a little bit less and less each time until they can do it on their own. We also want to increase our wait time each time, so we give them a chance to be independent. Another thing that's important is incorporating gestures into play and silly or preferred games, such as taking turns by pointing to favorite pictures or pointing to animals. This might result in you making a silly animal noise. Just base it on your child's area of interest. In this next video, you'll see a young child engaging with their caregiver in back and forth games surrounding things that the caregiver knows the child enjoys. The caregiver incorporates pointing to each other and silly reactions to encourage the child to continue to make gestures. Now we'll move on to talking about verbal communication. And remember, this is not just vocal communication. Verbal communication includes anytime your child is trying to share with you specifically what they want using words or phrases. This could include vocal communication, sign language, or a picture exchange. When your child indicates they want an item or activity, similar to what we talked about earlier, looking at the item, trying to access it by grabbing or maybe pointing, try pausing for a few seconds to give them a chance to communicate. During that expectant pause, we want to add drama and build up with your facial expression, some dramatic emotion, showing, oh my goodness, what's about to happen next? This will help your child get motivated. Next, model the word, or you could do a sign or a picture touch. You would like them to say up to 2 or 3 times to show them what you would like them to say before giving them the item. If they do imitate, give them lots of praise and give them a little of the preferred item. If they don't, maybe provide a gentle prompt for pointing to the picture or making a sign with their hands. If they initiate the communication on their own without a prompt, we want to give them more of that item or more time with the item. If you're not sure what your child wants, or they're not imitating or showing specific motivation, you can also try providing a choice. So maybe show them 2 items and say, hey, do you want a ball or bubbles? And you can honor a verbal exchange at this point or nonverbal if they're not able to verbally communicate at this time. In this video, you're going to watch a young man show some interest in watching a movie and his caregiver encouraging him to make the sign for movie. She'll pause periodically to encourage him to sign more than once to get some practice. Whenever teaching communication, make sure we're not only focusing on helping our child advocate for what they want, but also teaching them to refuse. We all deserve a way to say no. When your child shows you that they want to stop an activity or they do not want what's offered, they might show you this by pushing an item away or shaking their head back and forth, or maybe walking away from you. This is the time that you can help them learn to say no or stop. So you want to do the same thing as the earlier requesting techniques. You want to model the appropriate response. You could shake your head or model saying, please stop, or no, thank you. You can also hold up a picture of stop and have them touch the stop sign if that's easier for them to communicate. Another option would be teaching them to use their hands to sign stop with sign language. We can provide a prompt if needed by showing them how to touch the picture or make the sign with their hands. We always want to honor this communication by at least giving them a break. And if we're unable to honor it in a given moment, maybe it's an activity that isn't optional at that given moment for safety, we would use a first then. So we'd tell them first we need to complete this activity, and then we can move on to what you want to do. Next, we're going to focus on how to build on communication over time. During initial teaching, we want to accept all attempts at communication. So partial gestures, or reach for an item, or an approximated word, maybe saying buh instead of ball. We want to reward those things in the beginning because those are early attempts at communication. Reward the try. Great job telling me what to do. Accept the try initially, and then after a few practices, we can work on helping them make it clearer. We can model that full word or phrase one more time before giving them the item and then pause to see if we get a clearer try. Or we can gently physically guide their hands into a clearer gesture or sign. Maybe they sign partially for ball or cookie, and we help their hands make a clearer sign before giving them that item. After your child has quite a few words or signs under their belt, you might want to build on that by adding to their sentence length. For example, now maybe we have them say ball, please, or I want the ball. An important tip to remember is to occasionally throw in a freebie. We don't want language to be too much work for your child, so just give them one for free every once in a while without placing any demand because we want to avoid it becoming too demanding. A few other strategies that are helpful in building communication. One thing that can be very helpful is practicing fill in the blank games. With preferred songs or routines, focus this on what your child enjoys. For example, if your child enjoys singing the ABCs, you might sing A, B, C, D, E, F, and then get your child to fill in the G. For young children, physical play is also a great way to encourage motivation and gain interest. Try practicing fill-ins or encouraging requests during physical play. For example, you could give your child an airplane right on your feet, spin them around, or give them horse rides by bouncing them on your knees or tickles, depending on what your child likes. You want to pause in between actions, share smiles and eye contact with your child, and work on building that connection. And then building communication opportunities, like pausing and saying 1, 2, 3, and then model the go and let your child have the chance to imitate that. Or you can model them saying spin me, for example. In this video, you'll see a young boy playing with his caregiver. He's absorbed in his own play, but once she starts singing a preferred song and pauses to allow him to fill in the blank, he becomes engaged and he shares smiles and eye contact with her. A few last tips to help you in selecting things to practice throughout the day. Pick a few specific requests and gestures to practice daily. Don't try to tackle everything at once. So maybe start with 3 to 5 things that are your child's top favorite things to do. Focus on these until your child kind of has those down, and then you could add new goals. And practice them throughout the day. Pick a couple times that you feel like you can sit down and practice those things repetitively. And then if you happen to have extra time throughout the day to practice, that's great. For example, you could practice a vocal or a sign for movie periodically while you're watching a movie with your child, and pause periodically to give them an extra chance to ask. You could present choices between a preferred or a non-preferred food for each bite during mealtime and have them point to the one that they want or say the name of the one that they want. Practice at other times when the right moment arises. If your child shows you later in the day they'd like an additional snack or wants to watch another movie. But make sure you just pick a couple of times a day to hit more intensively. The last tip here is have fun. Engagement and fun are building blocks of communication. Anytime you can share a laugh, a look, or an achievement, this will help your child connect with you and communicate. Learning to communicate is like exercising a muscle that hasn't had much practice. Some keys to success are staying motivated, making it fun, practicing with a lot of repetition, starting with help and prompts for your child, but then fading these out over time. It's important to help them be independent. Practicing a small set of skills until they're strong before moving on to the next. Every child has different communication strengths and challenges. Start where your child is at and follow their lead. Communication will increase when it's fun, motivating, and helps your child achieve the ability to advocate for their wants and needs. This concludes the webinar on increasing communication in your child with autism. I hope this information has been helpful for you and your child. Thank you for participating today. The following slides will share with you some information about resources available and ways to help your child understand and manage during the COVID-19. Thank you for joining me for this webinar today.